it will be a win if you give more people that are interested an opportunity to buy from you. That's gonna guaranteed be a win.
Hey, what's going on? It's Joel Irway with another very special episode of Sold with Webinars. Today, you are in for an amazing treat. So I'm going to hit you today with another very special interview series. We're going to have a joint expert on here, a co-expert, Felicia Pagesh, and she is an international business consultant and digital marketing expert with over a decade of experience in working with some of the world's leading experts in the areas of business success, joint ventures, personal development, and health and wellness. And today we are actually going to be talking about something that we've never talked about before, which I have always had the idea to do, but I've never executed, right? Because I'm a content guy. We have tons and tons of content, but we have the expert. We have somebody who's done over $35 million with her webinar strategies with herself and her clients. And she's going to talk about a very unique opportunity to repurpose your webinar content to appeal to all different types of audiences. Felicia, I'm excited. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going? It's great to be here.
I'm very excited. So why don't we kick this off real quick? Give a quick 30-second background about your credibility, your authority. Let our audience kind of, rather than me talk about it, because I've got your bio right here, but I like to hear it from you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Felicia. I'm a 6 to 7 figure business consultant. I typically help with growth strategies for business owners who have sort of a webinar or some kind of campaign strategy in place. I'm a glorified hole poker, which means I could basically go into any campaign and within just a couple of minutes, I could find the biggest areas to leverage and figure out some strategies that we could put in place to improve based on the speed that it takes to implement them and the level of impact that they would have once implemented. Like you said, I've been doing this for about 12 years now. I've worked with Brian Tracey, Koenigs, Sonya Ricotti, a lot of people in the digital marketing, personal and development space. And also I'm a partner in a diet and health brand called the 17-Day Diet. So essentially that's me. And that's kind of what I'm going to talk about a little bit today is how to kind of repurpose some of this content, referencing some of the different brands that I've worked with and how some of these strategies work across the board, regardless of industry, which is what's really, really cool about it.
Love it. Content repurposing with the webinars. Is this something that you always kind of had an idea for? You say that you're a glorified hole poker.
Yeah.
Where did you come up with this idea? Was this one of the holes that you poked in one of your clients' strategies and it ended up being like a massive win? Like, where did you come up with this idea?
That would have been the cooler way to go about it. But selfishly, how it came about is because, we all, I work with all these different companies and I see the investment that goes into creating these webinars, right? It's like this core content piece that gets worked and reworked and tweaked and it costs a lot of money and it's just this huge outpouring of everything, of love. And I'm sitting there going, personally, I would never watch this. I'm too type A for this. I would never sit here and watch, a 1 hour content piece, but I'll make a decision with just a couple of, if I can read a couple of lines of text, that's enough to get me somewhere else. And I realized I'm not alone in that when I talk to other business owners who also would never watch this thing. We all know that it works so well, but it's like, if we're not going to consume it, who are we expecting to consume it? And why would we, just kind of limit ourselves in that way? So selfishly, it just came from my own disinterest in spending an hour of watching content in that way, but realizing that, the message is there, it's polished, it's a perfect way it converts. So how can we find better or different ways to appeal to people that consume differently?
Felicia, I got to introduce you to our mini webinar system. It's the whole reason why we created the mini webinars for the type A clients who don't have the time to sit through a webinar. But yes. I think what you've got here is an excellent alternative for repurposing this content. So let's kind of dive into it. So tell me about, let's start with like the first story, the first project that you worked on with repurposing. Like, yes. How did it go? What was the project? And let's kind of.
Yeah. So I was working on a webinar for, it was actually for Brian Tracey when we were doing our How to Write a Book campaign. And, there's a lot of there's a lot of different variables that go into that. But when you're measuring your results, right, this is what the first place that a lot of people make their mistakes is by not having the right tracking in place to measure their results. So they're kind of shooting blind. So we were measuring our results to see, how many people showed up, how many people stayed, how many people actually heard the offer, how many people, bailed before they even heard anything. But we know they're interested in the topic because they opted in for it, right? So we were kind of toying around with that. We had a pretty big drop off pretty early on. So we were building follow-up sequences actually to capitalize on those campaigns. And then, it kind of just came to me, well, why don't we, these are people that want to write a book. I'm sure that there are other ways that people learn how to do this besides, this one particular way. So I started to just toil with that and kind of rework it a little bit and thought, okay, why don't we transcribe this? Why don't we turn that into an ebook? And why don't we give people the option to consume either in the webinar format or in the book format? And lo and behold, sales came in immediately. And that was before these people would have ever heard the offer otherwise. And like another great example of this was when I was working with Mary Morrissey. We were doing a campaign for her where, it's a PLF, like product launch formula style campaign. It's the 3 videos. And you don't hear about an offer until, video 4, that's the solution. So we're on video 1, we're on video 2, and, we just live in a more instant gratification world these days. So people are consuming differently. So instead of having just those 3 videos on the page, we had options to transcribe video 1, transcribe video 2, transcribe video 3. So you can actually read the full portion and go along that way. $40,000 came in before anyone would have heard an offer, before an offer was even made.
Wow.
Just by retweaking it a little bit and putting that content in front of someone that wants to consume it differently.
So I want to go back to the Brian Tracey campaign, right? Because this is big aha. Okay. So for anyone listening right now, let me ask one question before I kind of expand on my thought. Did you tweak when you had that transcribed, right? You said you had a pretty big drop off early on. So people weren't even seeing the offer. So you had it transcribed, and did you send that to the entire registration list, or did you send it just the people who jumped off?
So here's what's really cool about it is that there's 2 ways to really utilize it. One is to get more sales from the webinar. One is to get more leads into the webinar funnel. So what we did is the first thing we did is we put the option to download the ebook on the webinar watch page. So it's just a very subtle soft sell, like not a soft sell link, but a very subtle link that says, click here to download the ebook. So it's not advertising it because you know that your webinar is still your core sales component. You still want as many people to consume that as possible. This is just now saying, you could put this on the replay page, or I would put it on the first run page. I'm all about putting the offer in front of as many people as possible. But
yes, we are going to be best friends. We are going to be best friends, like 100%. Anyway, so if you had your preference, you would put it immediately, like right on the live page. Yep.
I would do that. And here's what else I would do. That's what we learned from that. It's really cool, is to get more leads into the funnel, right? So if your opt-in page is, go here for this workshop training, go here for this, whatever it is, right? Free, whatever, perfect. But, and a lot of people will go in because they're interested in the topic, and, the ones that won't show up, maybe they're just not consuming that way. But there's a whole bunch of other people that would love to maybe read about it first. So you can actually use that ebook or that written piece as an incentive right on your opt-in page. So it would look like, sign up for this free whatever minute workshop, or in your case, mini workshop or whatever it may be. But just by having this little bonus incentive right on your opt-in page that says, plus when you sign up, you'll get a free 12-page or 26-page ebook. It just overcomes any kind of resistance by now offering both of those options, because you know that in the follow-up sequence, you will give them one or the other or both in some capacity. So just by putting that on the front end, you're now opening up the funnel to, double or triple the amount of leads just by offering that consumption type to appeal to people on the front end.
So have you seen opt-in rates go up when you
100%.
Really?
And what's really fun is from there, you can even flip-flop it because, you know, everyone's audience is different. It's always worth a test. So what we like to do is sometimes we'll feature, you know, sign up for the free workshop plus at the bottom, get your bonus 26-page ebook, right? Then we'll flip-flop that. Sign up for your free 25-page ebook plus when you do, get a bonus mini workshop.
So have you seen one outperform the other, or like what's your preference? I would say
there is no right answer for any of the individual campaigns I run. I've seen some brands respond incredibly well to the ebook first, workshop second, but I've seen it, you know, work totally the opposite way for other ones. That's why this is 100% just something to try out as a test, and just to see what the response is like. It also, you know, it may open up more leads on the front end, but it may, you know, hinder sales on the back end. So you always want to be cautious of how you're testing that. And I still always recommend putting the webinar first once you get someone into the funnel.
Mm-hmm.
But advertising those things in any variety of ways that gets more leads into the funnel can only help you later when you're capitalizing on that through the conversions in the funnel.
This is like one of those things where you just think it's like, you think people should have already figured this out.
Simple,
like especially marketers, right? You think that somebody like this would be more mainstream than it is. And it's like, we've already got the content created. Why not turn it into a freaking ebook, send it to rev.com, like get it transcribed.
That's exactly what you do. You slap a cover on that bad boy, add a table of contents. And what's really cool about this, what I love so much about these ebooks is 3 weeks after your live launch ends or whatever, you know, the sales slow down, obviously, you don't have the urgency, things like that. With the ebook on there, you're getting sales 3 weeks later. You're saying, where the heck are these things coming from? Oh yeah, I put a 1-page offer in the back end of my ebook. I put subtle soft sell links throughout my ebook. And now people are going to an evergreen sales page and buying this product from an ebook that I totally forgot they had, that was sitting in their inbox that they just decided to look at today.
Wow. Man, that's good. Like it's kind of, man, I feel very, I feel horrible about myself right now because it's one of those things where it's like, you could get so much more mileage for what you've already built.
It costs so much time, money, and resources to create these things that we just, you know, we don't squeeze enough of the juice out of those.
Yeah, 100%. So going back to the Brian Tracey campaign, so did you say, with that specific example, like, do you remember, did you send that to the entire registration list, or did you only send that to the people who opted, who jumped off early, or?
For the ebook?
Yeah, for the ebook. Yeah, because you said that was kind of like a last minute thing, like you saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what segment did you send that to?
Yeah, so what we did is, you know, basically what I do is I create behavior-based follow-up sequences. So I was in that part of the process and basically saying, okay, there's kind of 3 different groups here. So the people that opted in and showed up, okay, and then there's the people, but they didn't stay long enough to hear the offer. Then there's the people that opted in, showed up, stayed and heard the offer, but didn't take the call to action. Then there's the 3rd group of people that opted in and didn't show up at all. So in my, you know, there's kind of those 3 different audiences, which means for the first audience that showed up, heard the offer, and just didn't respond, you know, I don't want to send them a webinar again. This is kind of how this started, is they've already seen this webinar. Clearly, we didn't do a good enough job to overcome resistance with this group of people. So let's send them something else, maybe that, you know, would be more helpful. So we actually took that ebook and put that in front of them, because we don't know how much of it they, you know, they may have had it on the background or whatever it may be, but we don't want to send them the exact same piece of content. Let's just see if we can put it in front of them in a different way. And, you know, that's where we started with that group. Then there's the group of people that didn't stay long enough to hear the offer. So those people, we gave them another chance to watch the replay. And on the replay page, we put the option to download the ebook. Then for the 3rd group of people that just didn't show up at all, we gave them another opportunity to show up. In that group, we did the exact same thing. We put the ebook right on that page. And then from there, you'll either watch it or you won't. So you may see the ebook or you won't. So then we would just go straight in the follow-up sequence from email to ebook. So it feels like a total different piece of content, but you're really driving them to the same kind of thing. It's just, you know, shifting your perspective
perspective. Yep.
of what content actually is. And it's just a series of ideas, and those can be delivered in a lot of different ways.
Perfect. Yeah. So it's interesting because the marketer in me is thinking like, okay, if I had a webinar and we had the people drop off super early, I would have been like, crap, the content's off. Like, holy crap, like we have a big issue here. We have a really big issue here. But what you're saying is not really. Like, maybe for whatever reason, the presentation or the person who was presenting just wasn't compelling, or like you have no idea why they dropped off. It could be timing, you name it. Yeah. But the content was actually good. Like it was still good enough to convert. You just got to switch the modality.
For the people that kind of content works for, which is great because everyone has something that works for them. And really, so do you if you have a webinar. Because if you have a webinar, you have ebooks, you have action guides, you have workbooks. You turn those into fillable workbooks. You actually have blog content, which I would use to, the last part of that campaign, we would send to the people that just did nothing. Months later, we would send them to blog posts that were basically just deconstructed versions of the 3 talking points in our webinar. And the people who clicked those and went to those pages, we opted them back into our newly retoiled webinar sequence.
Yep.
To see if we can get their interest that way through just reading a different consumable piece of content.
So let's break this down even further. Okay. So we talked about the Brian Tracey campaign, like and you kind of just already touched on it, but like, how else do you start to repurpose it and tie it all into, I'm assuming this all comes into the same campaign? Ultimately,
all
like
the same campaign. It's all circular. Yeah, that's the great thing about it is you don't have to create anything new or spend any more money. Everything that we talk about today is something that you can do within the next 24 to 48 hours. And most people take just one of these ideas and it makes a major, major shift. So some of the other cool things you can do, if you've got the webinar, you can transcribe that into an ebook. We talked about that one. The other thing I love to do, and it sounds like you guys might actually be doing this already, is these micro workshops, which for us is really a deconstructed video sequence. So what we do is we take the webinar, which consists of your 3 main talking points, right? We take that, we add a tip and tail voiceover to the introduction so that you have 3 now separate pieces of video content. You add a separate intro, a separate call to action at the end of each of those videos. And now you have 3 different opportunities to find an angle that's going to appeal to someone, because maybe your webinar, how to do XYZ, sounds great, but if this person hears just one of those things specifically, that one angle that really interests them, that might be enough to draw them in. Then they want to stay for the next video and the next video. So it's just another angle to get more people to consume that content by breaking it down into those 3 video pieces.
So you've got the 3 video pieces, and you said this is all part of the same campaign. So is this after the initial campaign, the initial webinar campaign ends?
Yep.
And you are, those 3 workshop videos, are they 3 separate invites, or do they have to opt into the video series? Like, is this a PLF video series, or these are 3 separate, or these are just ungated?
You do not want to hinder people from watching your content that want to consume it in whatever way they want to consume it. I would never gate it. Basically, I would send this to anyone who's already opted into that sequence. But hell, I'd also send it to people that haven't. Mm-hmm. And, if you want to put the opt-in on the back end of that video and then bring them into the sequence that way, do that as well. But, if your content in any way has the potential to sell to somebody who wants that content and more of it, stop preventing them from being able to do that. So I would, in the sequence, I would have those completely ungated. They're just content pages with video content. I'd add a little subtle soft sell link at the bottom. For more information, go here, drives to your evergreen sales page. And then simultaneously, I would also go to my whole list of people that haven't opted into this whole thing at all. And I would say, hey, watch this great video. Just watch this great video. And they go to a page that has the video content on it. And then on the back end of that, you could say, if you want more videos like this, tell me where to send them. And then, it's just another way to get opt-ins into a different part of this funnel. And then you can even rearrange that around so that after those 3-part videos, for the new people that just opted in, pop the webinar in the back end.
Perfect. So, what I'm understanding correctly is this webinar is really a live launch webinar. Once it ends, then you turn it into an evergreen sales page, right? And you've got
I
all the
have
content.
I have two in my pocket waiting. I have my live launch page for
Yep.
the live launch that's happening with my bonuses, my urgency, whatever gets removed whenever the launch ends. At the same time, I have my standalone evergreen sales page that is just whatever the price is that I want this product to be. I don't have it published on my website, but I have it ready for any of the people who buy before the offer's made in a live launch. I have it ready for anyone that reads my ebooks that I had transcribed, and anybody else that just sees a link and is curious, wants to click it and might buy that product. So they're not feeling duped by, not getting the bonus stuff because they're never seeing it. As soon as they buy from this evergreen page, they're going to be suppressed from this campaign. They're going to get their deliverables and they're going to be extremely happy.
Awesome. So what's interesting is this secondary campaign with all the repurposing, it's completely evergreen. I mean, there's no time deadlines on all of it, on any of it, right? This is truly just like, it's whenever they're ready to buy, like there's that opportunity. So do you ever include any urgency in that kind of second helping campaign, the repurposing campaign?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Basically, if you put these people into, if you've got your live launch webinar, you're doing everything you can to get those people to watch it, right? But if they're not going to anyway, the evergreen thing is what's going to be your catch-all forever. So you can do a lot of things with, full disclosure, by the way, is always what has worked best for me. Not pretending like it's live if it's evergreen. Mm-hmm. Whatever's on demand is on demand. People don't like to feel like they're being duped, and people also, I feel like in some cases, urgency makes sense. In other cases, it's not necessary. So for those things, you can do a lot of fast action bonuses. It's just that you cookie it to the countdown timer that applies to when they see that page and when they see that offer. So you could definitely do things like that where you are providing extra value for someone that takes action right away. Or, you can also have a countdown timer that removes something whenever, the countdown timer goes away. So rather than giving a bonus, it's saying, this is what you were going to get for this price, but if you don't buy it within the next amount of time, then you're not getting this part of it. So it makes it easy for you really when you're doing it in evergreen format to add and remove things that are still urgent and still make sense without them actually being, in the launch sense, urgent.
So if somebody gets your ebook in the middle of that, and I think I'm getting too deep in the weeds here, and I hate doing this. So if this sounds too technical, then we can move on. But the ebook that you send inside of your initial webinar or launch campaign, you said that links to your evergreen sales page?
That always links to the evergreen sales page, because you don't want to get someone who, sees a live link from the launch and then reads that ebook later and then feels, duped by it. So that's why as soon as I do a launch, I always have my secondary evergreen offer page and campaign ready to go, because it's basically just your live launch page, but you're removing some things or you're changing some of the urgency so that it's standalone. So it's a duplication of that with some small modifications. Super easy, and it's super easy to do if you just remember to do it at the same time.
And so if somebody buys that during the launch, do they ever say, oh, I wanted the bonuses, or I went to the wrong link? And yeah, and you just give them access, or
bonuses. Yeah, you give them the bonuses. You always honor, what your commitment is, and you ultimately wanted them to have that anyway, right? Just that they saw it in a different way. So of course.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about those 3 workshop videos. Do those have to be re-recorded separately? Or are you just taking them from the webinar and putting the pre-roll?
So here's what's super cool about that is if it's done in a way where you're going through 3 talking points in a webinar, which is your typical structure, then with your webinar content, with your video workshop content, all you're doing is you are recording an audio voiceover introduction. Hey, this is Felicia. Today I want to talk to you guys about something really important. It's how to repurpose your content for webinars specifically. Okay, and then that's it. And then you edit that. Just pop that over a slide that comes at the beginning of the video. Then you attach the content for the topic of the webinar. Make sure you remove anything that was time sensitive in that time. And then you just put an end call to action. You record an audio end call to action. Thanks so much for watching. If you really like this, go to this page for more information. You can get all the details here, and that's it. And then under that little video is a soft sell link that goes right to your evergreen page.
So you can literally use the exact same webinar content. Like you don't have to re-record it. It's the exact same content that you pulled from the webinar. You're just putting the pre-roll and the bumper content,
You
right?
just put a tip and tail on it, and now you have a whole standalone piece of content that could be used in, like I said, any number of ways, not just a video, but any number of ways.
Awesome. So on your whiteboard behind you, for anyone who's watching the video of this, you've got kind of, I think this whole thing mapped out, right? So we talked about the ebook, we talked about the 3 workshop videos, you've mentioned audio. What is your favorite what is your favorite type of repurposed content that you get from a webinar that seems to make a really big impact?
Yeah. For me, it's the double usage of the ebook transcription on the download page, on the workshop watch page, but also the usage of that on the opt-in page to incentivize, because you could literally double your sales and your leads with that one thing. I've seen it happen across multiple different companies in different industries just by doing those 2 things. And it's simple stuff, right? It's just adding an incentive. It's not going to hurt anything to put that on your opt-in page. It's just not going to hurt anything. It's just another thing. Oh, well, okay, yeah, sure. I get 2 of these things. Great. And, and then you're giving yourself a forever opportunity to get a sale from the person that 3 weeks from now dusts that email off the shelf and decides to read your ebook and then, goes and buys.
It's amazing. So the ebook is really kind of the one that you've seen make the biggest immediate impact. And it's so simple to do,
You already have the next thing you could do. The next thing is with those, if you decide to deconstruct it into the video series, what I've seen work really, really well is to take those individual topics that you have transcribed, and instead of turning them into just guides, you can actually turn them into fillable PDFs. So it then becomes like it becomes like a workshop series where you're talking about something in a video, and in your webinar you might be addressing things like, ask yourself, what's the number one thing you could do to XYZ, right? You're like working through a process sometimes. So instead of just transcribing those 3 content pieces, you could actually make those fillable, ask some questions, and let them work through each of those pieces of content. So then they really become invested in consuming your content, because it's not only something that they can just read or look at, they're actually utilizing it to, to make changes in their business, which also hooks them into wanting to stay for videos 2 and videos 3, because they're kind of building an action plan. So we call these action guides, or a workbook that goes along with your workshop training. And that makes it a whole different level of perceived value.
That's awesome. You could even build out an entire microsite. Like, now that I think about this, like you'd have 3 compelling blog posts, at least 3 compelling blog posts that you can pull from this webinar. You can have worksheets, you can have videos, you can have your webinar, and you have your sales pages. Like, you could create an entire microsite with content, like ready to rock and roll just from one webinar.
Not only that you already have. You already have all this stuff. It takes literally 24 to 48 hours. Everyone when I do this presentation live, there's always someone that will reach out to me a day or 2 later and say, just by changing this one little thing, I had this done overnight after I watched this, and I got 10K from just making that little, like, this stuff is so simple, it's just not obvious. And it's so easy to do, which is what I love. It doesn't, like, everything I do is based on speed and impact. And so this is both of those things, and it's my favorite way to rework stuff. The other thing is, so there's some other stuff that you get as well with this. Basically, there are people who, for whatever reason, want to watch this, but they're not in a place where they can watch it. Maybe they want to read it, but maybe they're not in a place where they can read it. I also have all of my MP4s turned into MP3s. And so after I put the video in front of them, after I put the ebook or the transcript in front of them, the next thing I do is say, hey, free download, listen to it in your car, take it anywhere you want to go, put it on your, whatever it may be. And then the only change you make there is you create an audible call to action with a really easy to remember link. Like, so just go to, activate branding /book or whatever it may be, something that they can audibly remember, because if they're driving or something like that, you want that URL to be something they can easily go to. But I've had, a lot of people take sales from listening to this on their commute home, this webinar. It's not the same as a podcast, but it's similar. I mean, it's similar in that there's, it's content that people are interested in consuming in a way that works for them.
Man, I feel like such an ashamed marketer because I don't do any of this stuff. And I, number one, we already have this is what's sad. We already have my webinar that we've got running that's doing very, very well. It's already transcribed and we've just done nothing with it. So it's like, okay, I'll get my content team to actually slap a design on it. Do you go through the entire offer, like with the transcription at the end, or do you condense it onto, like, how do you design these books? Is it literally like once you're going, because your offer can be sometimes 45 minutes long, 30 to 45 minutes long.
Yeah.
Do you cover all that stuff or do you cut some of that out?
No. So basically what I'll do is, there's two ways you could do it. I've done it both ways. And it also depends on your price point too. If you're selling like a $3,000 program or something, you're going to need a little more convincing. So it may be something where you give, just the transformational benefits of your offer, and then you drive them to, an offer page with more detail. But what I like to do is just basically say, if this, at the end of the content, if this was of interest to you, I have this amazing thing that you might like. It's benefit, a couple of paragraphs about why, and just a really short form offer page. And simultaneously within the copy, wherever it makes sense, in the copy, I like to hyperlink certain lines of text that are call to action type text. Like, if you really want to learn more about how to engage X, I'll just hyperlink that soft sell. Not to be aggressive about it, but I've also been aggressive about it and put in banner ads or things like that too. It's not about, people are so afraid to put themselves out there and to kind of ask for the sale, but you're hindering so many people that want what you have to offer by being subtle all the time.
Yep. 100%. Man, so we covered a lot of stuff, right? We talked about your ebook repurposing for the webinar. We talked about possibly turning this into a microsite, which you could do. You talk about 3 workshop videos. You can turn those into blogs. The biggest aha for me is I don't have an evergreen sales page. And it just doesn't make any freaking sense why I don't have one. And I've had people.
How long would it take you to build it from your current?
I'd clone the existing one and just have it hosted on a different URL. I would remove some of the bonuses that's actually the reason why I didn't have an evergreen one, is because of my fast action bonuses or time sensitive bonuses. And I'll just take those out and I'll remove it. So that stays legitimate and have, the everyday price or whatever the price is going to be for the evergreen one without those bonuses. And so,
or think about, do you have any other digital bonuses that, can be fulfilled differently, or, that are still high value, but don't require, physical commitment or things like that. Like, everyone has those.
Yeah. Just changing the bonuses around to make it more appealing. I can't believe I've never had an evergreen sales page. That just kicks me. That kills me right now. Like, I've had people say, can you change the timer? I'll get the money in a little bit. And it's like, and I would always say no. Like, it's connected to my deadline funnel. I'm exactly like you. Like, you have to maintain your brand reputation. Brand is huge for me. Mm-hmm. And that's why I never had an evergreen sales page, which is just stupid. It's just it's just dumb. It's
so simple.
Poor business. But, so we talked about, having your 2 sales pages. We talked about turning your videos into workshop PDFs, which I love. And this all started with your first, I don't know if it was your first client, but the first time you used this was on Brian Tracey's. And so what were the results for that? So you said you had the, I want to go back to that. I keep going back to this, and I feel like I'm going all over the place as an interviewer, but this gets me really, really excited. But how did you know that was a big win? Like, what were the sales like once you sent that PDF? Like, you noticed the drop off, but yeah.
God, well, that was 10 years ago, so I'll be honest, I don't remember. But what I do know is that it was an immediate win, because we were getting sales right away that, beforehand it would take, you opt in, you wait a day or two, you have your, your whole process to get to where you need to be. But with this, as soon as we made the change, sales came in consistent. So, I mean, it was 10 years ago. I don't know. I don't even remember, but we just know that it was a win because before we didn't have it, and then we had it, and then we made money with it. So that's the easiest thing is it will be a win if you give more people that are interested an opportunity to buy from you. That's gonna guaranteed be a win. But the real winner, I think, was with, with the Mary Morrissey campaign, whenever we didn't make an offer until video 4. But on video 2, we already had, $40,000 in the bank. So it's certainly something that I recommend everyone try because, your content is so good already. So it's something that you invested so much in. So squeeze the juice out of it and put it in front of people in other ways, or people like me who are too type A to ever watch your webinar, no matter how good it is.
Well, so you're going to like this, Felicia. So I have this saying called MTDO, which is make the dang offer. And it's like the whole motto of what we do with mini webinars. And like the first thing that somebody sees is our offer. It's not free training. It's not free content. Like we want the promise, and we make it in the ad. It's not even like once they get to the content, it's the ad makes our promise, makes our offer. So we get those people to raise their hand, say they're interested, and then they come through and they're buying $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 offers. And
you've already conditioned them to know that they are going to be sold to. So there's no resistance around that. It's like, I'm interested in this. What do you got? I hope I get targeted with your ads because I'm interested.
Yep. So we are on the same wavelength because running the webinar agency, we've seen so much drop off, and like you build this massive machine, like how do you get the most bang for your buck with these webinars? And I just am very ashamed that I haven't done that with any of my clients. We did do, I will say, we did do one ebook for one client, but it didn't go to an evergreen page. It went straight to the countdown timer. And so that link was going to be dead. It was, so we really can't justify if it worked or not. But man, fantastic stuff. Is there anything that we left out that you wanted to make sure that we talked about? Anything?
Just one more thing, and it's along the lines of squeezing the juice with repurposing. When you guys do your webinars, how do you address, or like at what point do you address resistance?
Can you be more specific? So like what type of resistance?
Yeah. So like basically, if I don't know what your campaign sequence looks like, but you ask them to watch the webinar, they watch the webinar, they still didn't buy from you. What do you do to do you send emails to like overcome price objections, or do you do videos on that, or how do you?
Normally it will be emails, just for ease of use. If we're building this out for a client, the main video asset that we're creating for them is the webinar, and then all other objections will be handled through email. Cool. Or on a sales page.
Yeah. I was going to say, because there's a lot of people who with their webinars will do Facebook Live Q&As, or will do some sort of like live interaction with their group. And a lot of times, the questions they get popped up in chat during a webinar or whatever it may be are questions that are specifically, perfect for overcoming objections to the sale, right? So a lot of times we're answering questions that say, no, Shirley, in fact, this is why you should buy it because X, Y, Z. And you'll find that those are a lot of the same questions over and over, right? It's kind of redundant. So what I do is I take those, anytime it's a live Q&A or any part of my webinar where I'm addressing people, I transcribe that, and that's what I use to create my FAQ or price resistance emails that go into the campaign. So I'm basically answering and overcoming the same objections that the most people had just earlier on. And it gives you an opportunity to directly snap that,
When you say earlier on, does that, I was assuming that still went in your follow-up sequence, or what do you mean earlier on?
So with the webinar sequence, there may be portions of that where you do some sort of live interaction.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You may have a live chat on there where you'll directly address questions and answer those questions. Or you may do some Facebook Live outside of that during the promotional phase where you're, taking people's questions. And a lot of those questions are, price resistance questions or buyer hesitations for other reasons, but you know what all of those things are because you're already prepared for that, which is why, you're at the point of launching it. So I take whatever those questions are that I get just earlier in the live part of my campaign when I address those questions, whether it's in my webinar or whether it's on a Facebook Live or whatever it may be. I specifically transcribe those portions, and then that's what I'll use to create the emails that I put into my follow-up sequence to overcome price objections. So just like you said that you have those emails in the autoresponder that say, you know, here's some commonly asked questions, or here's some FAQs, or whatever it may be. I actually generate those instead of writing them or having a copywriter write on them. I generate those from exactly what the people told me that their concerns were just earlier in this campaign. And I use that as the FAQs that I put into that campaign. So it's repurposing that exact content to respond directly to the people that have those questions.
Perfect. Perfect. Felicia, man, this was awesome stuff. This is awesome stuff. This has never been talked about on our podcast. After doing 120 episodes, we've never talked about repurposing. We always talk about traffic strategies or conversion strategies, which this is technically conversion strategies. But I mean, this is like taking your webinar and running an extra 100 miles with it, right?
Yeah.
If your webinar took you 10 miles, this is going to take you 100 miles, which is fantastic stuff. I mean, I'm really, really ashamed that I have to admit I don't have an evergreen sales page for my core product. And that, I think, is the biggest shameful admission that I have on this entire conversation. I mean, tons of great content that you talked about, but it's like, man, why don't I? Like, I just keep sending them back to the webinar, go to the webinar. And I, like, in the back of my mind, like, I know that's not efficient, but I'm like, I don't want to sell it again with the same bonuses. And anyway, just
want to recreate this. I don't want to have to, it's a lot of, yeah, exactly. And that's why I love this so much, is because you don't need to. It's just a lot of like wanting to kick yourself for stuff that, you know, seems obvious, but then you really don't want to kick yourself because it only takes 24 or 48 hours to actually make that change. And then you'll be like the happiest person ever. It's a pretty common response, but it's, that's why I love this stuff so much, is because we're busy, especially a lot of us that are solopreneurs or, you know, have a lot of other stuff going on. This is the easiest way for you to take what you have and just make, you know, more money, generate more leads with it, without it being the biggest headache in the entire world.
Where can we check your stuff out? So let's drop some links. Let's send people your way, because you obviously have very, very great content. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so if you go to activatebranding.com, you can check, there's a free resource section on there where I have some really great strategy guides for building out your campaign, but also there's a presentation on there where I gave this speech. It shows you the exact examples of how I would utilize a video first versus ebook second on the opt-in page model. I'll show you exactly where I put things in terms of what the ebook looks like, where the soft sell links go, examples of banner ads, all that stuff. There's a presentation on that there. And there's also some other checklists and things like that.
Very cool. We'll make sure to include that in the show notes. Felicia, this has been a 10 out of 10 conversation. I appreciate you bringing your knowledge, your expertise, sharing it with my audience. If you liked this episode, if you liked this conversation, please go check out Felicia's site. We're going to include the link down in the show notes below. Give her a shout out. Let her know that you heard her on Sold with Webinars. Tell her that you love her. Tell her you love this content, because it was really, really world class. And we'll see you all on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.